Okay, let's unpack this. Our sources are painting this really vivid picture. It feels like a modern-day policy gold rush happening right now in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it really does.
And this deep dive, it's all about critical minerals. We're talking lithium, copper, rare earths, the essentials.
Right.
And this unprecedented, just huge surge in lobbying aimed straight at the U.S. government.
That's absolutely right. And the focus, according to the sources, is really on how these companies are reacting to some pretty ambitious investment pledges coming from the current administration.
Pledges that frame these minerals as, well, critical to national security.
Exactly. Essential. That's the key word being used.
So we have a pretty clear objective for this discussion, then.
We do. The mission, really, is to understand this pivot. Why are all these companies suddenly rushing to D.C.? What specific political connections are they trying to leverage?
And what deals are actually happening? What's the financial reality?
Precisely. It's about connecting those dots, between the big national security strategy talk and the actual on-the-ground corporate influence, seeing where the money's really going.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Section 1. The policy pivot and the money magnet. What actually sparked this boom? Because it wasn't just general economic vibes, right? There was a specific shift.
Yeah, a very specific, deliberate change. Before we get to the why of the lobbying, we should touch on why these minerals are so important in the first place.
Good point.
So, critical minerals, including those rare earths, they're absolutely fundamental for, well, almost all high-tech stuff. Think EV batteries, smartphones.
So it also advanced military gear. Fighter jets, missiles.
Exactly. Precision-guided munitions, advanced aircraft, really sophisticated defense applications rely heavily on them.
And the problem is China controls a huge chunk of that supply chain.
That's the core geopolitical issue, yes. So facing that dependency, the current administration, they moved away from the historical approach, which was more about, say, basic industry grants or general subsidies.
Yep.
They pivoted towards strategies that actually include securing partial ownership of the companies getting federal money.
Whoa, okay. Partial ownership, that's different.
It's a massive shift. It fundamentally changes the dynamic.
Because the government isn't just handing out cash anymore. If they take equity, they're sharing the risk, right?
Yeah.
Like a venture capitalist.
Kind of, yeah. In a way, the government is acting like an investor. They get a stake, potential upside, but also downside risk if the project doesn't pan out.
And we're seeing this with specific companies.
We are. The sources mention MP Materials and Lithium Americas as examples where the U.S. government is looking for or has secured these equity stakes.
Okay, so that pivot must have sent ripples through boardrooms.
Oh, immediately. It got every executive's attention. There's this great quote from Ken Hoffman. He's a commodity strategist.
Yeah.
He said, once the U.S. government started giving money away earlier this year, every minerals boardroom in America started to think, what about us?
Huh? That really sums it up. Like flipping on a giant green light labeled federal cash.
It really does. And the lobbying that followed, it's not vague stuff. It's incredibly targeted.
Focused on specific outcomes.
Exactly. They want federal investment dollars, obviously.
Right.
But also, crucially, help with permitting, which is a huge bottleneck for mining.
Always is.
And long-term procurement guarantees. They want the government to commit to buying their output for years. Locked-in contracts.
And the market saw this coming. How did it react?
Instantly. The effect was pretty dramatic. As soon as companies started aligning with this new industrial strategy, their stock prices just took off.
Really?
Yeah. The sources point to the Sprott Lithium Miners ETF. It tracks a bunch of these players. It jumped more than 35% in just 1 month.
35% in a month.
Wow. Yeah, just as the strategy became clear, the market basically smelled the government money coming.
Which acts like a safety net, I guess.
A powerful one. But, this brings up an interesting point about the funding gap. Why is government money so critical here? You mentioned big players like JP Morgan are looking to invest billions, right? Up to $10 billion.
Right. So why the desperation for federal funds if private capital is circling?
Well, because private investors, despite the interest, they're still pretty nervous. Especially about funding the smaller companies, the junior miners.
The explorers.
Exactly. And also novel processing technologies. These are high-risk, very capital-intensive ventures. They take years, tons of money, and might not even work.
So the private money waits for a signal.
Pretty much. Government funding, especially a big loan or an equity deal like we discussed, it's seen as the ultimate validation. It's like the government saying, yes, this project is strategically vital and we back it.
Ah, okay. So it's the government's stamp of approval that unlocks the private coffers. The validation itself is the real prize, almost.
In many ways, yes. That validation de-risks it for everyone else.
Okay, so the money's there, potentially,
Yeah.
and the government's signaling it wants to invest, even take ownership. How do companies actually, get their hands on it? That leads us straight to the power brokers, doesn't it?
It does. Section 2, leveraging political connections.
This is where it gets really DC insider fascinating.
Yeah. If you want that federal money, and maybe more importantly, those faster permits, you need people who know exactly who to call, who can navigate the agencies, the White House.
People with serious connections to the current administration.
That's what these companies are banking on. They're hiring some very prominent firms with deep, deep ties.
Okay, let's name names. The sources highlight a couple. First up, Ballard Partners.
Right. Run by Brian Ballard.
A major Republican fundraiser.
A top-tier one. Helped raise, over $50 million just for the 2024 campaign, according to the sources. That buys a certain level of access.
Unparalleled access, you'd imagine. And our company's signing up.
They are. Ballard Partners has signed at least 6 critical mineral companies just recently. Big international names like Korea Zinc, U.S. Strategic Metals, TechMet, Falcon Copper.
Wow, so they're seen as the go-to firm if you want to align quickly with this administration's priorities.
Seems that way. It's a clear signal about who they think can deliver.
Okay, firm number 2, the Bernhardt Group. Linked to David Bernhardt. Why is that name significant for a mining company?
Well, Bernhardt previously ran the U.S. Interior Department.
Okay, Interior. That's huge for mining, right? Permitting on federal lands.
Exactly. Interior is the gatekeeper for a lot of these mineral projects. So hiring his group isn't just about general influence or fundraising. It's about directly targeting the regulatory process itself.
So you're not just hiring a lobbyist. You're hiring someone who knows the exact levers to pull within the agency that controls your project's fate.
That seems to be the calculation, yes. Someone who understands the permitting labyrinth inside and out.
And who's hired them?
Well, BHP Mineral Service, that's a subsidiary of the giant mining company BHP, and also Trig Minerals, which is developing a tungsten mine in Tennessee.
Tungsten, another critical one.
Yep. So their goal seems pretty clear. Get U.S. government support, sure, but maybe even more critically, speed up those notoriously slow permitting and environmental reviews.
Okay, so we've got the policy change, the government wanting equity, the market reacting, and now the specific lobbyists being hired. Let's connect it all. Section 3. Case studies in influence. Are these lobbying efforts actually paying off with concrete deals?
Oh, yeah. The sources show these campaigns translate directly into deals, or at least serious negotiations. Let's look at 3 examples that kind of cover the different types of outcomes: loans, equity, and contracts.
All right, case study A, Lithium Americas. We mentioned them earlier.
Right. They hired a firm called Guidepost Strategies back in July, paid them at least $200,000 this year alone, according to filings.
Okay, $200. What did they get for it?
Well, they just reached a major deal. Washington gets a 5% equity stake in the company and its Thacker Pass project in Nevada.
The one partnered with GM.
That's the one. And in return, Lithium Americas gets access to a massive $2.26 billion loan from the government.
Wait, hang on. Let's just pause on that return on investment. They spent $200,000 on lobbying.
At least $200,000 reported so far.
Okay, let's say $200K. And unlocked $2.26 billion in capital. Plus that government validation we talked about.
That's the math. It's an absolutely enormous return on their DC spending.
It really shows how valuable that political access is perceived to be when this kind of strategic capital is available.
Absolutely. And the Lithium Americas VP, Tim Crowley, he described their lobbying work as, quote, sharing the positive impact of Thacker Pass with an array of critical stakeholders.
Which sounds like very careful corporate speak for, we worked the system and secured the deal.
You could interpret it that way. And that 5% equity stake really confirms that new model we discussed, government taking ownership in exchange for big money.
Okay, powerful example. Case study B, Critical Metals Corp. What's their story?
They hired a different firm, Cornerstone Government Affairs, back in February, paid them $210,000. Their goal was a bit different, though.
How so?
They've been holding talks with the White House about a potential U.S. equity investment. Not a done deal yet, but talks.
And where's their project?
It's a rare earths deposit in Greenland.
Greenland. Okay. Strategically important. Not China, but definitely outside the U.S.
Correct. And their chairman, Tony Sage, was pretty explicit about why they're lobbying. He said the West's limited access to rare earths makes it even more important to ensure our deposit and vision are on the radar of key decision makers in the United States.
So they're spending hundreds of thousands just to get on the radar, positioning for a future deal.
Exactly. It's about laying the groundwork, making sure the right people in D.C. know who they are and what they have, hoping for that eventual government partnership and investment.
Okay, different strategy. And case study FISI, United States Antimony. What did they achieve?
They hired Cassidy and Associates last November, paid $130,000, and their outcome wasn't a loan or equity talks, it was a contract.
A defense contract.
A big one, a $245 million contract with the Pentagon's Defense Logistics Agency, the DLA.
The DLA. They're basically the military's giant supply chain managers, right?
Pretty much. They procure almost everything the military needs. So, United States Antimony secured a massive customer guarantee from the Pentagon.
And why did their CEO say they needed lobbyists?
Gary Evans put it very simply. The purpose was, quote, to help legislators understand what we're doing. Some didn't even know we existed.
Wow. So sometimes the lobbying is just about basic visibility.
Mm.
Getting notice to win a contract that was maybe already in the pipeline?
It can be. It shows the range. From complex equity negotiations for future Greenlandic mines to simply making sure the Pentagon's buyers know you exist and can supply critical antimony right now.
It really covers the spectrum.
Mm.
Are there other sort of niche examples?
Yeah, the sources mention Korea Zinc again. They're involved in processing polymetallic nodules from the deep seafloor.
Seabed mining. That's controversial, but potentially huge.
Very. And they specifically lobbied the administration because the administration has been pushing to potentially open up seabeds for mineral production. So Korea Zinc wants to make sure their specific niche technology is part of that conversation, that they're positioned if and when that happens.
Aligning their specific tech with a developing, maybe future strategic priority.
Exactly. It's all about alignment and access.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. Section 4. Synthesis and key takeaways. Looking at all this lobbying, the money, the specific deals, what's the big picture here? What does it all mean?
Well, what really stands out is the rapid creation of this specialized, almost boutique influence industry just for critical minerals in D.C.
A whole ecosystem.
A whole ecosystem, yeah. The data clearly shows this calculated alignment. You've got the national security strategy saying, we need this stuff, we need it away from China.
Right.
And then you have this massive corporate push saying, okay, we have it, or we can get it, now give us the federal funds and speed up the permit so we can actually deliver.
And it seems like hiring these connected firms is almost becoming table stakes. Like you can't even play the game without them.
It certainly looks that way. The sources indicate at least a dozen firms across lithium, copper, rare earths, even geothermal, have hired these major politically connected lobbyists just since January.
A dozen in less than a year.
Yeah. It demonstrates this perception that right now, political access and influence aren't just helpful, they're basically mandatory if you want to tap into this government funding quickly.
Especially with that new equity model in play.
Especially then. And this reliance, it kind of builds a permanent DC infrastructure around mineral supply. These lobbying relationships, once formed, tend to stick around, regardless of who's in power next.
So for you, the listener, maybe the biggest takeaway here is seeing how one specific policy change, that shift from just subsidies to demanding equity, acted like this incredibly powerful catalyst.
Like dropping a match into gasoline.
Yeah, it instantly created this boom in a whole secondary industry. The Washington influence game, all focused on securing that very specific, very valuable government investment. It creates a system where, arguably, political access can directly influence the speed and direction of national security initiatives.
Which leads to a final thought, perhaps. Connecting this to the bigger picture. Look, the need for the U.S. to secure these minerals and secure them fast, partly due to global pressures, that seems undeniable, right?
Seems like a genuine national security imperative.
Right. But it does raise this important question for you to think about. Is that immediate benefit, getting the supply chains built quickly, worth the sort of visible cost and the reliance on these hyper-connected political lobbyists to actually make the projects happen?
A tension between the urgent need and the means used to meet it.
Exactly. Is the speed worth the potential downsides of relying so heavily on political influence peddling to drive essential infrastructure projects forward? Something to mull over.